what day is today? Wednesday, May 24th, 2023. I'm up and was I'm working on employment, of course, and I have Boosie's interview with Vlad on Ti snitching on in the background. Couple of things hit me, and when I type in my titles, you guys, excuse any typos or anything like that, is usually on a phone or something. I can't really see, and the only time that I'll catch it really is if I go back and look at it, which these days I don't always do immediately because I have other priorities or other things that I prefer to be doing. And my vlogs and things like that are on the spur of the moment. I need to test something real quick. But so what I wanted to say about that is this. So the world is really hypocritical these days. And that's one of the issues that I have with employment. That's the issue that I have with things that I have issues with in the world in general. So as I'm listening to Lil Boosie in the background, he's talking about how, on the one hand, he's talking about T.I. and how he did like 8 or 9 tracks on a song, basically finished an album with Ti. But then Ti came out as saying that he snitched on his dead cousin so that he could get a lesser situation in a gun trial or something, some crazy shit like that, right? And Boosie is a big advocate, street advocate, no snitching, or whatever. And so he says that, he got word from his camp, whether it be a family member or people that were just friends, to not release this album, because you got to hold true to who he is. He says, with everybody snitching, he's one of the last ones that don't, right? So, he says that on the one hand. Then on the other hand, the topic came up about, so for me, when anybody says no snitching, what it's saying to me is that, on the one hand, it's saying that, crime is crime and you don't talk about it and you don't talk to the police and whatever, blah, 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 right? But then on the other hand, in regards to that, um, and what's my opinion on that? I don't know. I mean, the police to me are a bunch of liars. I'd rather not be involved in any crime or be around any crime. I don't condone any violence. I don't condone doing anything that's going to put somebody else in an adverse situation. I don't believe in harming anybody in any way, mentally, physically, socially, spiritually, all of that. So I don't agree with any of that. And usually crime involves that type of thing, right? And I'm not into any of it. Um, Speaking of police, we'll talk about that. And like I said, the past few days I've been going to a soup kitchen, and one of the things that I noticed, again, you come in contact with different people. You come in contact with a lot of street people, and some of these people are authentic street people. Some of these people, like that old man that I came across, are pedophiles. Him and his brother. But and I felt, even though I'm almost 50, I felt like I was being groomed, and just the presence of those people and the fact that they're interacting with me sends chills up my spine. Um, and you know, but I'm the kind of person, I don't talk behind people's back or talk out loud about you in front of your face. If I can speak to you directly on something, I will. You know, and if I find that I can't, that's when if I need to, for my personal health reasons, talk about it elsewhere, I will. Um, but anyways, going back to Little Boosie and his statement about stitching and how he was so big an opponent, not proponent, but opponent of snitching, that he couldn't release this album that he and Ti took all this time with and spent all this time on. But then Vlad made the comment that, hey, actually, Ti admitted to this before you did your album. It's just that it was in a 2-hour video with somebody, but it's just that you didn't catch it because a lot of people miss that stuff when the videos are that long, right? They don't break it up like he does, blah blah blah. But then the other part of it, like on the one he's talking about not snitching and whatever. He talks about how big into the streets he is, and basically all this crime stuff. And to me, this is what I translated to be. It may not be true, but I translated to mean that, hey, people get killed and do murder and all this other stuff, and it's, you don't tell on that, right? You basically, you know, that's how I feel about it. Like I said, I don't know if that's the way he really sees it. But then on the other hand, they start talking about his daughter, who his daughter, participates in same-sex relationships, which I think the whole world is basically doing at this time. So it's not a big deal. This video, I think, was posted last month, by the way, just to give a timeline. So, then as he's talking about his daughter, you know, he goes on to say how they're from a Southern Baptist family, and that type of lifestyle doesn't go with a Southern Baptist, a Southern Baptist, you know, upbringing. But does murdering and killing people? So does that go with the Southern Baptist upbringing? Bringing, you know, all of this is just so hypocritical to me. Where again, lean not into your own understanding. If you talk to somebody directly and ask those questions, then you don't really know. But yeah, that's a contention that I have with that. Now, and that I have with the world, and any contentions that I have with the world is because of their hypocrisy. Now, talking about, and I hope this microphone is working. Let me see. I don't know. I'll see afterwards. But talking about pedophiles and molestation and stuff like that. I've never been molested, not that I know of, or anything that I would consider molestation. There may have been things that were adjacent that I probably wasn't aware of because I was too young to know. But like I said, I'm almost 50, but there was an older family, two brothers and a mom. The brothers had to be like 70 and 100. They're old as hell, right? And that's when I first moved about. I was living in this apartment complex. And these people, I felt like I was being groomed, even though as old as I am, with me, trying to connect. And I'm just thinking bright eyed, oh my gosh, if people connect with this is going to be like my own family. They'll be like my brothers and whatever, whatever. Change phone numbers. Next thing I know, this old ass man is calling me at midnight, coming to my door at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. You know what I'm saying? And it's disgusting, And I wouldn't answer the door because one, I'm scared. Two, I told him not to call me. Please use my number. Then his brother is talking about, oh, he has a social security check. Like what in the world? And it's grooming. I didn't like it. It made me feel real creepy and uneasy. Then when I went to volunteer at that place, I think that one of the brothers was there. And when I say brothers, I'm not talking about young people, I'm talking about like 70, 80 years old. Brothers was there. And I think that he may have said something to allude it to something different, or perhaps it was just weird. Next thing I know, people are sitting stuff in front of my door. I mean, it was just like the weirdest thing. And I don't feel comfortable. And like I said, yesterday when I went to the soup kitchen, um, the person the person said to me, hey, don't I know you? Long time no see. And I was just cordial. I was like, yeah, it's been a long time. He's like, Lee Street, right? No, we lived in the same apartment complex, and you were very fresh with me, and I didn't appreciate it. And then, I started to feel bad a little bit because I was like, what if it was the other brother? Then I remembered it was both brothers in different ways and different intensities, and it was really inappropriate. And the younger brother, though he's 70 something, I could see him raping someone, or harassing or abusing someone. And it's like the older brother, because he's on a softer side of things, he's the groomer. He'll get you in because you think a nice little old man. And then, he says, oh, let me introduce you to my brother. And you're thinking, oh, that's sweet. No, it's not sweet. Those people are molesters and groomers. And that's how I feel about them. And if anything, but what I thought was inappropriate because I stated it out loud that, hey, you refreshed me in that place. On the one hand, it could be good because you're letting people know. But on the other hand, I don't want to disrupt that environment. Like they said, you got to cast the mote out of your own eye before you attempt to cast the mote out of the eye of the others. And I should be double recording because if this doesn't record and this is just like a silent blank screen, that's going to really mess me up because I actually appreciate what I have to say, and I'm saying it because it means something to me. So let me double check and make sure that I'm at least being heard or there's an ability for me to be heard. Um, Hope this don't take too long. Or I could just start recording because right now, if it's lost, it's lost. I can start recording where I am. That's what I'm going to do. All right, so just to catch up on everything real quick, I'm recording now, double recording just in case. I was talking about, you know, how hypocritical the world is, and I was talking about how I was working on an employment thing, and had a little Boosie Vlad interview from about a month ago, talking about Ti one in the background, and how Boosie was talking about, um, the code of the streets and how why the album with Ti wasn't coming out because they did about 8 or 9 songs, they completed it, but Ti made it publicly known that he, basically snitched on his dead cousin so he could get a lighter deal or something like that. I really think Ti is probably with the feds, is all it is. And Boosie's like, it doesn't make sense. I don't think that's true. Why would you wait 20 years later to say something like that? Why would you say that and mess up my album? Because now I can't put the album out because his friends and his people in his camp, his family, are saying, no, you got to stay true to the streets. Boosie's saying he's one of the last ones left that is true to the streets. And then all of a sudden, T.I.'s coming out with all these Crime Stopper videos, whatever. I gave my opinion on what it means when you say, basically, people don't snitch or rats or whatever like that. You're basically saying, I don't really, I think the police are one of the biggest criminals in the world, but if not the biggest. But, and on one hand, when you're saying that you're not acknowledging, crime and things like that, that happens to me, in my opinion. And again, I don't know the story. I haven't talked to Boosie. I don't know Boosie. We'll probably never see him, you know, or whatever. But and I don't think I want to because, seeing that interview and seeing how he interacted with Vlad was good because some of the way that Boosie responded made me scared. I would have probably been shivered in my boots. But um, so, what it says to me is that you support crime and that you're okay with people being murdered and killed and all this. So I'm okay. I'm like, okay, so that's Boosie's stance. Like I said, I think T.I.'s probably just fed. But a lot of rappers and people are, I think, Wyclef Jean or somebody, one of those people in Fuji's camp was also with the FBI. You never know. And I think you do know because when you start talking to people, the way that they interact and behave, it says a lot. To me, it's pretty clear. Like I said, just talking to that guy in the soup kitchen for a couple of minutes the other day, stuff didn't align, stuff didn't add up. And I was just like, this guy is with the feds. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, he was saying stuff that was really, really not true. And if you were on the streets or from the street, I'm not even fully on the streets or anything like that, you would know because those are situations that you would have experienced. But he didn't know, and he was making up stuff based on, what his ideal of things was. It was terrible. But I caught on. But anyhow, stuff like that happens. And the day before that I went, there was another guy that, as I started talking, he went to himself, and I could see that he was one of those people too. Um, yeah. hmm But anyhow, I thought it very ironic and hypocritical that Boosie was talking all this stuff about being street hard and this, that, and the other, and you don't snitch and rats, and how all his camp was saying this. He's one of the last real ones, and I guess real ones when meaning gangsters left. And on the next hand, when Vlad starts talking about his daughter, who is you know has a proclivity towards the same sex, and I think a lot of people these days, that's just what it is. He's like, oh well, that's not acceptable. He goes into, we're a Southern Baptist family. We're raised Southern Baptist, and that's not okay in the Southern Baptist community. So murdering people is okay in the Southern Baptist community. Maiming people, doing physical harm or harm in any way, financially anyway, to another person, that's okay in the Southern Baptist community. So it's all very hypocritical to me. And it presents an issue that I have on a wider scale with a lot of things, with the world and how the world is socialized these days in general, right? And that includes employment. Employment is a huge institution. To me, just like they have the prison, which is privately owned, it's basically a slave complex. I think employment is the same, privately owned slave complex. Um, the things don't match up. What they say they do, the policies that they put in writing that they say, none of that shit is true. All of that's bullshit, and I've experienced it too many times to know, and I'm tired of it. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. I'm gonna call it out. I'm gonna address it, in a way that's, as professional as I can be, but as real as I can be too, without being disrespectful. You know, hopefully, without any perception of disrespect. So, but just honesty and being straightforward, straight talk. So yeah, so that was the thing I had with that. And then I talked about, this, talked about the soup kitchen things that I've experienced there and how I ran into a couple of situations yesterday that made me very, very uncomfortable. My spirit told me not to go there yesterday, right? But it made me extremely uncomfortable. And I talked about how there's two brothers that are there that I think the youngest brother is probably like 80, 70, 80, old as hell. And the older brother is like 80 something for sure. And, one of them is partially disabled in a wheelchair. And how I felt, even though I'm almost 50, I felt molested by them. I felt like I was being groomed by these old ass men. When I first moved here to Valdosta, I lived in an apartment complex, because my house wasn't ready. And so when I went in, but I ended up having to make an alternate arrangements because it didn't have good Wi-Fi. That's a whole different story. But it was, I was all bright eyed and bushy tailed. A lot of times I still have a lot of that innocence in me where I just want to connect with people. That's part of the reason. I do go to when I do go to soup kitchen. It is because I need to, but also it's because I want to connect with people. One of my passions is people that are homeless, people that have been victimized by the criminal justice system. All of those things, domestic violence, domestic abuse, all of those things are important to me. And when you go to places like that, you will find it rich with that. But you will also find the other side of the coin, those people that are molesters, those people that are pedophiles, those people that are real ass fucking criminals. Then you will find people that are volunteering there that are marginal. You know what I'm saying? That even though they're not at the soup kitchen, being a patient or client there, they probably could qualify, should qualify to be a patron or a client there, right? Um, but but they're not. And then some of these people are just genuinely unhappy with their lives, but they come there every single day. And I talked about the woman who I volunteered with at one time, and I noticed her behavior. When I volunteered with her, I didn't notice her gossiping about people or talking trash about people. But the last 2 days that I went there as a client, I saw that shit. You know what I'm saying? I saw her giving me the eye. I walked in on her specifically in front of my face talking shit about somebody that was there. So these people are not fully stable either. They're not happy with where they are. But then I looked at the Bible verse about taking the mote out of your eye before trying to take it out of someone else's, right? And so the moment that I was saying that, like, ew, you're bringing all this negative energy. Are you okay? She's trying to ignore me, but the black guy beside her was just like, yo, she's talking to her. He didn't say that, but he said it with his actions. Like, if you don't say something, I'm gonna say something. Now, maybe you're not gonna ignore me. But then, as soon as I felt that way about her, that she's bringing this negative energy in there, that's when I saw that old ass man, and he was like, "Hey, long time no see," and I was pleasant and kind back to him. And then, I realized, yo, this is a dude that was old ass man that was being fresh with me, basically making me feel molested at 50 years old. You know, and I was loud about that. I was like, "Hey, yeah, yeah, no, you don't know me from Lee Street. You know me because we lived in the same apartment complex, and you were fresh with me." And he was like, "Fresh in a good way or a bad way?" And I said, "Sir, in a bad way." I felt like I was molested. I should have said, but I didn't go into it. I felt like I was being molested in the room. Then when I thought about it, I started to feel bad because I was like, what if it was his brother? Then I realized it was both of them. And then I felt a little bit bad because I was like, could I handle that better? Because I'm bringing this negative energy into this place, right? But then at the end, when they were leaving, I saw his brother did show up. I saw the same behavior. There was another girl that came out the back, younger than me, probably about 30. Same way, grooming, the grooming process. And I recognized I recognized the exact same behavior where he would say, "Oh, hey, it's the older, the older or the most disabled of the brothers." Excuse me, y'all. I had a couple things going on here, and it's always like when I'm in the middle of something. I have an issue with my gums. I have something in my gums, and then all of a sudden, out of the blue, I have a coughing fit. But anyhow, it's still in there. I don't know what it is, and it hurts. But yeah. So it's the same grooming behavior where the older brother that looks more disabled, that's disabled and partially disabled and more handicapped and has a quote unquote seemingly sweet spirit. He'll say, "Oh, hi," he'll open the door for a conversation. and he'll be like, "Oh, this is my brother," and the brother is the one that's like the rapist. I mean, it's just like it's awful, 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 awful. But I want to be the kind of person, just like with the employment thing and the hypocriticalness, I'm standing up to that. Now is do or die, and we'll see how it goes. But cause I'm tired of it. And there's a guy, I'm really tired of it. There's a guy on TikTok, I forgot his name, but he's real controversial. He gets all these random ass jobs, right? But he ends up suing these companies, and I don't know about suing because you know how I feel about the legal system. It's a bunch of bullshit. But I think that just bringing out what's really happening and putting it on a table for discussion is good enough for me, and addressing it clearly and specifically, right? And dealing with everything that comes up with it, because I'm not going to have to know immediately how to handle each situation, but is putting yourself in a situation where those situations are available to you for you to train yourself to handle those particular situations. And with the same thing with these grooming type of people, who would think at 50 years old you would feel groomed or molested? You're grown as a woman at this point. I never been groomed or molested in my life, but this is that made me feel that way. How am I going to handle that? Because if and I don't really have a reason at this time specifically to go to the soup kitchen at this time specifically, because if I'm not there to spread goodness and joy, and I'm not there because I have absolutely no food in the house, you know, or I'm lacking some type of nutrition, then I shouldn't be there, right? Because if you're not contributing, you're taking away from, just like that woman who's showing up to volunteer every day. If you're talking shit about the people that are clients, ma'am, you're taking away from, the positivity that could be. And I don't want to be that person. You understand? So how can I address that? If I see that person again, and how can I do it without it being a liability to me? Because I would want to interview that person. I want to say, hey, you know, you and your brother, y'all seem very predatorial to me. And the only reason I'm speaking to you is because you've taken the time to speak to me first. I would like to interview you, if you don't mind, to open some discussion about that and have it recorded. And I will post it somewhere because it makes me really uncomfortable. But I want to do this face to face with you, so I'm not making comments behind your back. I'm being direct with you. And, something that makes a 50-year-old woman feel like they're being molested, I think is a serious thing. And I want to check out where your mindset is, what your history is. Are you a molester? Are you a predator? And why do you think that's okay? You know, and I don't think they can stop because, like I said, the same behavior teen, I saw them do that with someone different. And I want to address it that way. But if they speak to me again, the younger one knows not to, but if they speak to me again, I definitely, and like I said, the older one is the one that he catches you off guard because his spirit is sweet. But but then you realize that you're being pulled into this thing, you're being groomed. But you're speaking to me, so and eventually, and as soon as I say something, I'm going to start recording and say, "Hey, can I record?" you know, that way it's recorded from there. And if he says I cannot, then I will stop. But just yeah, it makes me really uncomfortable, and I want to address that because what if the situation comes about where I have to be in that situation again, where I don't have any choice? I want to be able to address that. And I want it addressed. Another thing, like I said, going to the soup kitchens and things like that, had a situation where, like today, like I said, these people, you deal with all types of people, people that have been through things, been through situations, people that are desperate for money, people that really are prostitutes or whatever. Then you have people that, just like me, that, may be marginal, you might need a little help there, here and there. And you have other people that, they have a certain way of living and the soup kitchen is just incorporated into it. They have a home, they have food at home, but it's part of, what they do, to help supplement whatever it is that they got, But you have people again that are with law enforcement or legal or FBI and all that. You do have that, and when you get there, if you take my recommendation to just go on a day off or something and go to a soup kitchen as a client, you can clearly see. Look at people's behaviors. You will see. You will see. Then you see people that are really good, people that are trying to spread sunshine. Then you see haters, and you see jealous. You see all kinds of things. It is a pressure cooker because you have a lot of people under a lot of duress. It's one step outside of a homeless shelter because all the people that are in homeless shelters basically go there. But yeah, I want to address that. But I talked about the guy that was possibly FBI, the two guys that I saw on two different dates. Then there's a woman. I don't think she's FBI or anything. She may be, but I think that she's probably a prostitute. So I don't know. I don't know. These are all people have assumptions about me too. But she's a Latin woman. She's very pretty. And I would like to interview people in general. And maybe I should start that. Maybe I should start asking when I go to Soup Kitchen. Now, the thing that I feel hypocritical myself about is that, like I said, on the one hand, I want to go to the soup kitchen every day that I have available. But on the other hand, like I said, if I'm not there to spread goodness and joy, and I haven't prayed up, it's going to be a requirement for me before, if I decide to go, it's going to be a requirement that I read over the armor of God and that I redo the armor of God products that I have out, right? Um, it's going to be a requirement because I can't just be going out there. And when you're not prepared, I talked about planning the other day. That's part of planning. When you don't plan. All right, so it's not recording.